Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? Hope you're having a good day. It's a day that the Lord has made, and we need to rejoice in it. And certainly, we don't need to be sorrowful or complaining and griping about it. So that's what we need to work on. And we also need to do something for God today. Instead of complaining, why doesn't people go out and teach the gospel? Why can't our church grow? Well, that is our individual responsibility to help make that happen. All right, the title of the lesson today is What Direction Are You Going? And the Bible teaches us there's only two possible paths to be on. And we need to be on the right path. You know, Matthew 7:13 and 14 says, Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and many are those who enter by it. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and few are those who find it. So the broad way is the way of the world, and the narrow way is the way of God. All right, so we need to be on that right pathway, and that's what we need to work on. And so while on earth there may be many paths to get to a certain destination, it's not so when it comes to our spiritual destination of heaven. There is only one way. Jesus is that way, John 14:6. And the Bible teaches us about both paths, and there's a very strong suggestion implied that you need to be on the right path if you want to go to heaven. Your soul depends upon it. If you really don't care about going to heaven, then you will definitely be on that pathway that leads to hell. So keep that in mind. And of course, we're going to talk about some common sense rules for getting there. All right, before we can go anywhere, we must know some things. Where the place is, and where we are right now, and what direction or path do we need to follow. So depending upon how much time you have, you can take various roads. If you're taking a vacation and you want to go from here to there, you might take the scenic route, or you might take the most direct route if you're pressed for time. And so, since the world may end at any moment, we had better be on the right path at that moment. See, this is what Peter was saying there in 2 Peter 3:11. Since all these things are to be destroyed in this way, what sort of people ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness? So, folks, we need to be on that right path right now, because we don't know when God is going to end it all. And we just can't assume that, well, we have tomorrow to work with. You know, James 4, he says, don't make plans and don't say tomorrow we're going to do this. Our life is but a vapor. But if the Lord wills, we'll do it. So that's something we have to keep on in our minds. See, one of the tools that I use in my travels is a GPS device. It stands for Global Positioning System. It's an amazing piece of technology, and it's kind of a mini computer with but one function in mind. It uses satellites to calculate your exact position on Earth, and when you tell it where you want to go, it calculates the fastest and shortest routes to get you there, depending if you want to take toll roads or something like that. And you can program those in, say, avoid toll roads, and it'll still get you on the fastest route possible. Now, when it comes to our spiritual journey, we need a GPS designed by God. We could say this is God's plan of salvation. That would be one form of it. And we use this GPS to get on the right path. And once upon that right track, we need to know how to stay on the right track. And so that's where God's GPS stands for God's perfect standard. And the Bible keeps us on the straight and narrow, but only if we follow the directions. That's the key right there. We got to follow the directions. You just can't take any pathway and expect to find God. You know, there's people that teach that. There's many paths to God. No, there is not. There is only one, and that's through Jesus. And so when we start thinking about how are we going to be getting there, see, we realize the GPS does not drive you there itself. Yeah, they got cars that do a lot of the driving for you nowadays, but the GPS does not drive you there itself. All it does is give you the direction that you should go. I mean, it makes recommendations. And sometimes they're smart enough to know, well, there's a traffic jam ahead, so maybe this particular route, and they adjust your route to save you some time. And so, but still, anyway, since it gives you those directions, you still make the choice of following or ignoring the instructions. And do you realize that most people live this way? They really do. They live whichever they want. And if they don't want to follow those instructions, they're not going to do it, especially God's instructions. So here it is with the GPS. When you've programmed a destination into the GPS, as long as you stay on the route that it suggests, you're going to be fine. If, however, you get on the wrong road or make an unexpected turn, the GPS will implore you to turn around, make a U-turn, go back, get back on the route you're supposed to be on. And sometimes you'll notice if you make that wrong turn, you'll see a little recalculating, and there's going to be another course you need to get back to your route as soon as possible. And that's what it wants to do. Even though you might know a shorter way of going someplace, once the thing is programmed, it's going to want to stay on that route. And so you're going to have to kind of recalculate it yourself. See, the church is likened to the voice of the GPS or the instructions on the GPS unit. See, if you get off course, the church implores you to get back on course. And that is what we as Christians do for each other. And we cannot make you change course, but we can encourage you to get back on course, on the right course. That is if you want to go to heaven. If you don't care about going to heaven, you're not going to pay attention to what anybody tells you. So a little common sense comes in here. And so if you are on the right course and you're heading towards heaven as that's where you want to go, why would you get off the right pathway? We have to ask that question sometimes because many people do so. Why would you ignore the instructions that God gives you? You might think you can get there on your own, but you would be wrong. We cannot do that on our own. We need to follow God's instructions and not our own. And really what you would do is you'd waste a lot of resources trying to get there by different means and routes. It doesn't work. There's only one way, and that's got to be the right pathway to get to God. So people who ignore God's instructions on how to get to heaven usually follow another GPS device. And this is common throughout the world and common with practically everybody. And this device created by Satan and promoted and advertised in our world today. See, this GPS stands for greed, pride, and selfishness. See, these three alone, you think these are just three little sins out of all the many sins that are listed, but really, these three alone are the greatest hindrances to people being faithful to God. And these three drive all the other sins. You start looking at that list of sins and you find out that they are driven, they are motivated, they are encouraged by greed, pride, and selfishness. And so there is not a problem or sin that is not driven by one of these. And one of them kind of covers all the others. See, greed, the desire for more. More what? More wealth, more possessions, more power, more fame, more pleasure. These are things. These are things that just people just got to want. And it drives them. When people have greed, there's really nothing's going to stand in their way. There's not going to be any hindrances. They're going to go around them or whatever, and they're going to get what they want. And another word used in the Bible to describe this sin is covetousness. Now, Jesus included a list in Mark 7:20 through 23, and he was saying that which proceeds out of the man, that is what defiles the man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed the evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murders, adulteries, deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things proceed from within and defile the man. And that's very true. It all comes from within ourselves. There's not any external forces. Now, we might be influenced to do some things, but really, sin begins in our own heart. I mean, James 1, 13 through 15 tells us that. And in Colossians 3, 5 says, therefore, consider the members of your earthly body as dead to immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and greed, which amounts to idolatry. Or some versions use covetousness, which amounts to idolatry. See, idolatry, we know, is anything that takes our adoration and focus off of God. Some people think, well, idolatry, that's just bowing down before a carved out image or stone or a statue or something like that. No, it goes beyond that. Anything that takes our focus off of God. It might be your favorite sports team. It might be the overtime that'll cause you to miss church or something like that. I mean, so that's what it is. And it replaces God. And what you're telling basically the world is God is not as important as these other things. And so men, people of the world, they worship idols when they should worship God. And like I said, it doesn't have to be an idol to Baal or Buddha or something like that. I mean, anything that they worship, they have adoration for, that replaces God is an idol. And so when a person has greed, let's face it, God takes any position other than first place. And if God's not in first place in your life, as Jesus said, seek God and his righteousness as the most important thing. Do this first. I mean, so the next thing we want to look at is pride. You know, 1 Peter 5:5 says, you younger men likewise be subject to your elders, and all of you clothe yourselves with humility towards one another. For God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And James says a similar thing. He says, James 4:6, but he gives a greater grace. Therefore it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And this is a quotation from several Old Testament passages. And the idea of pride, I mean, that's what pride does. You elevate in your own mind how great you are and how everybody ought to recognize your greatness. I mean, that's not humility. You expect people to honor you. And there's warnings about that as well. And so Jesus was telling the story. You know, when you go in, you sit down at a lower place, and then when the master of the house says, come, friend, come sit in a higher place, then you have pride, you have honor among all. But if you go in and sit at the best place, oh, that's reserved for somebody else, and you, in shame, you have to go back to a lower position. So, I mean, pride gets people into trouble. Pride lets people see other people's sins, but not their own. Yeah, and then there's the last one, and this one drives every sin you can imagine. There's not a sin you can even name that isn't driven by selfishness. So, I mean, notice the middle letter of sin is I, just like the middle letter of pride is I. See, this is what I want. It's me. As long as I get what I want, me, myself, and I, they're all the same. And that's what sin involves, what I want. See, there's not a sin that doesn't involve it. Even if we do not intend to sin, I mean, and so it's not something we deliberately do. Sometimes we don't know that we're doing it. But we do know this, what we do is what we want to do. I mean, that, and there's just no way of saying that any differently. If we do not intend to sin, our wants and desires are not always under control as they should be. And yes, that's what we're asked to do. I mean, the scripture tells us, you know, we ought to be able to control ourselves and not let our bodies control and dictate what we do. Otherwise, we become just like the animals and just go follow the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eye and the pride of life. See, Paul had the same dilemma in Romans 7:14 through 25. And yeah, it's a long reading and it's kind of difficult to follow along. But basically, what Paul was saying was he wanted to do right, he wanted to go to heaven. And his body of flesh had other intentions. And when we realize it, yeah, that's for each and every one of us. We all do that. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And thus, he needed to learn to control the body. And we need to do so also. We need to control our behavior, control our actions, control our thoughts, control our words. We need to control everything about us, and we can only do that if we are sober-minded and focused on doing the right things. In Philippians 2:3 and 4, it says, "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, let each of you regard one another as more important than himself. Do not merely look out for your own personal interest, but also for the interest of others." And so selfishness breeds the pride and greed, and then, of course, all these others. They're the foundation of all sin. So, folks, our path to the straight and narrow is charted out for us. In Proverbs 3 and verse 6, it says, "In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." I mean, if we turn it over to God and let God direct our paths, in Jeremiah 10:23, he says, "Is not a man who walks to direct his own steps." And so, I mean, God will guide us, but here's the key: we have to let him. God has told us how to get there and is constantly helping us to recalculate our direction when we get off course. I mean, his church is there for that purpose, and his Bible are the tools to get us on and keep us on the right track. Everything we need is in the Bible. I mean, 2 Peter 1 and verse 3 tells us that. And so the question for you is, what path are you on right now? And it's dangerous to think, well, I'll take the wrong path for a while, but then I'll get back on whenever I want to. Well, folks, the idea of getting back on the right track is a problem here, because the longer you stay on the wrong path, the farther you are away from the right path. And, it's not like jumping from one train to another on parallel tracks. I mean, the tracks start splitting, and all of a sudden, there's just no way that's going to happen. So we have to be on the right path right now. And if you're not on the right path right now, and you're not sure how to get on the right path, you can always contact us. We'll be glad to discuss this with you and help you out in any way possible. Send me a comment here on this video here. We'll answer your questions that you might have. So, folks, that's going to be our lesson for today. Consider these thoughts, and Lord willing, we'll be back with another lesson. Bye-bye for now.